3 hours, Hannah, and honestly, my brain is just full of all of these kind of inspired ideas from these wonderful people.
It's been a bit of a whirlwind. It's gone so quickly. All of the speakers have been absolutely fantastic, but I think very, very practical approaches as well. I think there's so many takeaways that anybody at any point in their career can lift and use next week, or start a conversation with somebody next week. That's what really resonates with me, that the legacy, going back to Maz's point, the legacy doesn't need to be big. It's taking that first step, having that first conversation, disrupting that first narrative, or thinking about that first text. And then it naturally picks up momentum. How about you? What are your takeaways, Bennie?
I think for me, it's this idea that, people have taken their position. It doesn't matter what position they're in, whether they're in the classroom, whether they're in their early years, whether they're in actually leadership, that they've done small things to advocate and to ally for children. That have just formed part of their values as a teacher. And I think that's the key thing, that if you're starting out in your career, really pinning down what your values are. And I think pledging then to make that part of your journey, like Maz's timeline, that was inspiring. She thought through every single step of her values. And I think, when we think about what our pledges are going to be, what our diverse ed pledges are going to be, wherever we are in our careers, that's something that we can really kind of tap into.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who is still listening who has not read James Kerr's book, Legacy, I'd really encourage you to read that. It's all about why the All Blacks are the highest performing sports team in history, and what is it they've co-created from a cultural point of view that's underpinned with their values. Their values are humility, excellence, and respect. And everything that the All Blacks do go back to those values, about how they interact and how they treat each other. And I think it just really makes me think about Halil's point about this has to be cultural work. The curriculum work is important, but you can't do the curriculum work without the cultural work. Like, do you want to add anything to that, Bennie?
That's true. I mean, obviously, I'm always going to say do the curriculum work, but
at the same time,
at the same time. But it does mean that we have to start unpicking what culture means in schools. And there's some great work out there about how to create cultures and how to create movements. And that TED talk about how to create a movement with the man dancing by himself on the side of the hill is one that I always go back to, because it's not you. It's you and your first follower who creates that movement. So who you take on board is really important in all of this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite a few of our speakers have talked about having the end at mind and thinking about the kind of the impact, the outcome, the what you want to be achieving. And one of the questions we used to ask at interview when we worked together was like, what do you want your legacy to be if you take on this post? What's your legacy going to be at the post you're leaving? So for all of the people starting their career, think about that. Like, what do you want your legacy to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? How do you want to leave your footprint and make sure that it becomes embedded? So what's your pledge going to be today then, Bennie? We're going to invite everyone now to tweet out my diverse ed pledge. What's today's pledge?
Oh gosh, that's a really hard one. I haven't really thought it through yet. I think my diverse ed pledge is going to be to think about my training program for my ECTs and see whether actually we're placing enough emphasis on DEI work in my own institution. So that's something that I can take away in action.
I'll add to that we're also launching the Leading a Diverse Curriculum programme in September together. So that's another legacy piece, and there'll be details for that in the website and the newsletter. I think for me, my diverse ed pledge is the fact that we've created a new space for the community in the last 2 weeks. So please look out for a link to join our mighty network. All these conversations are really important, but they can feel quite isolating. They can feel quite vulnerable when you're doing them on Twitter and you've got a kind of a toxic environment around you. So we have created a safe space to come and join and connect and have these conversations without that fear of judgment, which perhaps sometimes happens on social media. And our final piece of legacy is that our book is being published in a few weeks' time. So please do look out for Diverse Educators, the manifesto. It'll be in bookshops from April the 11th, and our book launch event is on April the 23rd. So we'll pop all of those links into the follow-up email with all of the information that's been signposted today. So thank you very much to all of our fantastic speakers. Thank you very much for joining us. I know a lot of you are lying in your garden in the sun, listening to the broadcast. So thank you for joining us. And if you're catching up with the recording, it'll be on our website next week. And we look forward to hearing what you think about today's inputs. So thank you very much and enjoy your day.